Hello and good morning to our listeners from around the world. I want to welcome you to another great edition of This Morning with Soulivity, broadcasting live from our nation's capital here in Washington, D.C., and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Wesley Johnson. And again, I am so glad you're here with us because I am joined today by some very beautiful and special friends, Candice Harper and Tami Gaines. Good morning, ladies.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Oh man, this is a great day. It's raining here, but it's okay. I mean, the
Here
rain
too.
Right?
helps, grow everything.
Yeah.
Um,
But
l-
why is it raining and 55 degrees on
I
February 17th?
hey, it's better than that other four-letter word which we're not going to talk about.
Which we've had very minimal. Like it's hardly happened this winter. It was like one day for 2
I
hours.
know.
Right,
Here
which I'm
today.
fine with.
Are you?
I'm fine with it. I'm
I
done.
think we're
Yeah.
we're gonna get blasted in March.
Oh,
Yeah.
hey, none of that, none of that. Listen, before we begin, I just want to remind everybody, just like we're doing right now, this is an interactive conversation. We want you to ask questions, comment, give us your thoughts. Just post to our live feed on Facebook and YouTube on our social media channels, and we will, do shout outs to you and get your thoughts on air with us. Candice, you have a very interesting story, and I'm going to say to the least, for us to start off with. Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
Well, I just, learned about this stuff this week. I feel like I'm late to the game, but we're adding another to the annals of the Me Too movement and disappointing childhood heroes who have been behaving badly. Steven Tyler, there's a woman named Julie Misley who is suing him because in the
Mm,
70s, yeah, in the 70s, he sexually assaulted her. And also, for a long period of time, she was 16 years old and they had an ongoing relationship. He even got parental rights from her parents to take her on tour. And the kicker is that he wrote all about it in his memoirs recently. And so now she's suing him and also has, his own words to back up her case,
Mm,
right? And 2 things came up for me. First of all, just the disappointment of, I've always been a fan of Steven Tyler, so
yeah, me
it
too.
was
yeah, me
right?
too.
It was disappointing to find out that this was the case. Not so much that, he was a 70s rock and roller, so they're not necessarily known for their, moral fiber, but just that
I like that backhanded swipe. Woo.
but it's
Sorry, Stevie Wonder.
Shade.
Sorry, Stevie.
Shade.
but it's the audacity of it all, and the fact that he felt like it was okay to write about it. Also, he uh it wasn't in the Yahoo article, but it's also said that he forced her to have an abortion.
Right.
They had a sexual relationship for a long period of time. And so, it begs the question, like, we're in an age where luckily there's been the Me Too movement, and this is more of a conversation than it's ever been before. But I still feel like there's an air of audacity. So I thought it'd be
Hmm.
interesting to just kind of talk about one, like what can the conversation be specifically with young people because we are so fame obsessed.
Hmm.
And I think that's a lot of the reason why young people get involved in these kinds of things because, they've been left to their own devices and we're fame obsessed society. That's why parents, will sell their children and give away parental rights because, riches and fame. And then also, how do we navigate like within our life, like stardom and criminality? Like there's been a lot of very famous uh people who are put on this pedestal who are actually criminals.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
I thought that would be an interesting conversation to have.
All right, Miss Tammy. I know you got some
Mm,
thoughts on
mm,
this.
mm, mm, mm. I don't even know where to start.
So much to it.
So this is different of the topic, of course, Candy. So to that piece, um, who are his advisors?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Who's the
Yeah.
publisher? Who was the
Yeah.
publisher that read this book and said this is gold?
This is a go.
Oh,
This
oh man,
is a
this is the
go. Like we're gonna
greatest
make
thing
millions of
ever.
dollars. Like his
Yeah.
normal life wasn't good enough, and then you had to expose this thing.
Yeah.
This doesn't end well for Steven Tyler, and if you think it does, in his words, dream on,
Right,
dream on.
right, right,
Um, but I guess my first reaction to when I heard about this and just listened to Candy is like, how do you sell your kid?
Yeah.
yeah, right,
What sort of
right, right,
demented view of the
right,
world and of your relationship and your family that you would why would he gave his kid up to a 26-year-old, or they, I should say, the parents, to a
The parents.
26.
Yeah.
I have a 26-year-old. She's not ready to raise no kids.
Right.
right,
You know what I mean?
right.
So I feel like that was just the beginning of the downward spiral, but there's another piece which is going to be very unpopular. Like, it's really hard for me to talk about this without sounding like I'm blaming the victim
Mm.
and
Yeah,
without letting Steven Tyler off the hook, because
right,
I'm not doing either.
right,
Mm.
right.
Um, and by the way, I've been in this situation where you end up in somebody's hotel room and it goes bad very quickly. And
Right,
that's when I was much younger,
right,
Yeah.
much
right,
younger.
right,
If it after it happened the first time, I think it said he flew her to his next concert.
right.
Yeah. He took her on tour.
Tour,
Yeah,
yeah,
what,
Mhm.
what,
yeah,
why
yeah.
would you get
At
on the
16.
plane? Why can't we? That's the conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mm.
why would you get on the plane?
you
Yeah.
know, I was thinking of
It's
as I was
dastardly.
thinking of, yeah, I know, right? As I was thinking about this, I couldn't help but also bring into the viewpoint that this is a state of privilege,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
Um, we did we the collective we, not me, not probably you guys. We just elected a president that admitted openly to, you know,
Grabbing.
grabbing somebody by the thumb some,
Hmm.
and nothing happened to him.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And so there's this culture that I also believe that's there that you were alluding to earlier, Candy, that, if you're rich and famous, you can just do about anything.
Yeah.
And that, again, it is Steven Tyler is how old now? I mean, he's 74.
Yeah.
This happened over 50 years ago, like almost 50 years ago, and it's just now coming out. I mean,
Yeah, I thought
Right.
about that too. Like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, and again, I'm not blaming the victim here because that's a whole lot of trauma,
Hmm.
especially if this young girl, when it was going on, was like literally in love, right? Maybe she
Right.
thought, oh, he loves me, we're going to spend the rest of our lives together and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But damn.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the other thing, Candy, you were talking about, like, what's the conversation we have with our kids?
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
so different now. So I'm gonna we're talking about this happened 50 years ago, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I have had my fair share of Me Too experiences when
Mhm.
I was in my early 20s, which was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and when the Me Too movement, well, anyway, uh, the point is, the conversations that we're having now are so different over time. So when that stuff was going on with me in a Fortune 50 company, um, I didn't go to my mom. I
Mhm.
didn't go to like my grandparents because I know like you have no, well, maybe they do, but I went to some friends. They were like, "Oh yeah, that happens all the time."
Mm.
That's like,
Mm.
so we were sort of in our own little club talking about how do you manage that. I think the conversations today are so incredibly different
Yeah.
because for the most part, I think the majority of kids aren't running to concerts.
Yeah.
But they
Right.
are seeking fame, but they're making it themselves. They don't really idolize people the way they used to.
Yeah.
That's true.
Even that
I believe
Justin
that.
Bieber phase like is gone. But now we have to be wary of cyber stalkers.
Mm.
People that
Right.
are luring them in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The dirty old men have gone online.
Yeah, it's a very different conversation than we would have, with this woman.
Yeah.
One other piece around this too, and I mean we're going to continue this into the next segment. Where were the other adults that were around Stephen?
Yeah, that's what
his managers.
Yeah.
I just keep going back to that. Like, are you freaking serious?
I don't think they had the same sort of management that they do today. Back then, it was a bunch of people that knew each other, and there was nobody in charge. Their only job was to make music and have fun. Right. That was their only job. You don't need anybody to manage that.
Did you get the drugs? Did you get the booze?
Yeah.
No, you're fired.
What time is the van coming? Did you get the suite at the hotel? Like, I'm hungry.
Yeah, like handlers and enablers, who also were benefiting, it's like with the R. Kelly case, also benefiting from fame and all of that. Yeah.
Well, Stephen, you better start reading up on
how about just grab a book?
Right.
Grab a couple of books, you're gonna need them.
Exactly. Look at what just happened to R. Kelly. So, I mean, that's a whole nother. That's like 3 shows. That's not even one show.
Every time you say his name, a shiver goes through my body. It's so wrong. The whole thing is just so wrong on so many levels.
And the saddest part is specifically with music, I feel like there's just a long list of, idolized musicians,
right.
from maybe a time gone by, but maybe we don't know what's happening now. Cause I don't know, like Tami, we're the same age group. Like in the 90s hip hop, like I had no idea what was going on. And there was a recent documentary, I want to say a couple of years ago, talking about what was happening with like was it Def Jam Records and
yeah.
It's always
there was a lot going up in NYC.
Yeah. So, I feel like it's one of those things where you don't know what's happening when it's happening. It's always a hindsight type conversation. Like, oh, now we realize that this is what the young people were doing.
No, we're not buying that line. We know everybody that we're just complicit.
Yeah. But yeah, complicit and keeping it from whoever would have actually stopped it,
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to keep talking about this. Because
like
this is
president.
I know it's a rich topic. So everybody listen, we're going to just take a quick break. And we're going to keep talking about this case and probably bring in some other cases that are similar because we need to talk about this. And so we'll be back in about, maybe 2 minutes. 2 minutes and 1 minute. I don't know. We'll be right back. Hey there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoyed the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And woo, we are back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. I'm joined by Candice and Tami. We are talking about the latest and greatest in the Steven Tyler child abuse case. Woo.
I have an updated twist with this case.
Uh-oh. Thump.
Right? So Julie Misley, who's the accuser, who's alleging, their relationship in the 70s, is now a representative for the anti-abortion movement because of that forced abortion that he had her
What?
right?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Would you have preferred to have that child at 16 or 17?
And I want to thank you for listening in to another This Morning with just end on that. Like, my mind just got blown. Like,
I just found Wes is researching with us. He's along with, and I just found out myself. I didn't know that she was a part of the anti-abortion movement, but yeah, she's a big advocate. I guess she's being touted, by the GOP.
So let's get this right. The man that was the adult that abused you and got you pregnant is not, and that experience is not the source of the deep emotional harm that is quoted in the memoir.
Like why you're suing.
Yeah. And so you have an abortion that is your legal right to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after you have it, you're saying that's wrong to do.
Yeah, that's the story.
If y'all could see me, I'm drinking my coffee like it's tea. All right.
I just got up. I'm pacing around now. That required me to get up out of my chair.
Yeah.
And so, audience, what do you think about that? What do you think about that? I mean, the case in general, but man, I'm like,
do you think her trauma clouded her vision?
I mean, I think it's very possible because, that's definitely a thing. But I also think that, like, I would be curious to know from her own perspective, like, what are some of the multi-layers to it? So is it that she feels that the trauma is the sexual assault because that's what she's suing for? Like, she,
right, exactly.
And enough, the strange thing about this lawsuit is that normally with these things, they're settled out of court because usually they just want to get it over with. And so lawyers come to an agreement quickly.
Right.
So they're not settling out of court. This is actually going to, it's going to trial, and they're going to do a whole thing around it. And so there's that part of it. And then there's the part of it that is, I guess part of it is that she's shielding him, but she's suing him because he forced her to have the abortion. And so I think maybe that's where it's coming out of, being anti-abortion so that other women maybe can't be forced to have an abortion. But I feel like that is statistically the lowest rate of why people get abortions.
Okay. I just had like an epiphany. I'm going to jump in.
Okay,
I just figured her out.
Yeah, please.
It goes all the way back to what you and Candy were saying about fame-seeking behavior. So of course she doesn't want to settle out of court. She wants the lights, cameras, and action on her for the weeks or months that this case is going to take. And of course she's anti-abortion because it's so ironic that she's going to get attention for that. And being a high-profile anti-abortion person is going to give you, especially in today's environment. So maybe this is unconsciously calculated, but it seems to play into exactly what you were both talking about before, which is like, what will people do? To what lengths will they go to have their fame? Selling their kids?
As I rub my chin, I'm like, methinks Tami is on to something here.
Well, I think what's also challenging is that we're in an age where it's like, like you were saying earlier, Tammy, we don't want to blame the victim. However, people like look at Amber Heard and that whole case. Like people are
I was
Yeah.
just about to say that nonsense
right, like just so
with Johnny Depp.
clamoring for a
Yes.
platform and relevance and money and it I don't know. It just
Yeah, but but the worst thing, if you think of why do we tune in to watch it?
Yeah.
I
Because
don't watch that stuff.
I don't mean we, the three of us.
I know the
I
collective
mean, like,
we, yeah.
because aren't we feeding that bad
It-
cycle?
absolutely. It's clickbait. It's
Yeah.
engagement bait. I mean, that's what it's all about now. It used to be, like the Nielsen ratings. It still is about the Nielsen ratings to a certain degree on like certain platforms, but now it's like that plus internet. So they want the likes, they want the comments, they want the shares, they want the retweets, they want all of that.
Yeah.
And so as long as people are like, man, did you see Steven Tyler and da 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 and all this other stuff, it's going to continue.
And what's unfortunate about that is that there are a lot of victims, like innocent victims,
Absolutely.
who, end up not really knowing the direction to go in and, become prey for, basically these pedophiles and predators who, because of their status, can do whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, go ahead, what
You
were
know,
you
I
gonna
was
say? I was just
go
gonna
ahead.
say, I think you're right, Tammy. The times have changed as far as how we sort of idolize these people because it is much more accessible for a lot of people to get famous. And also, I think women in general, the newer generation women understand that they can do things for themselves and make their own money and get their own fame. But I think that when it comes to that sexual power struggle and the puritanism that we have in our culture around sex, and also that need to be famous and special is still an underlying, like, girder to how young people think. So I think that what's most important is that we, um, care for those who are, vulnerable to these kinds of things. And just start to develop an understanding that it doesn't mean what people think it means, what young people think it means. This fame, it doesn't make you special because you have a lot of money, and you shouldn't be more entitled to my body because you have power.
Right.
Like, I think that's still a confusion with young people.
It's so funny. I love this, and I love how Candy you bring it back to the truth about what's really going on here.
Yeah.
And we're gonna end this segment on a comment from one of our co-hosts who's actually listening in. Sheila Applegate says, to be fair, he brought her back into the limelight when he wrote about her.
That is true. That is very true.
Okay, that's true, Sheila.
Like a fool. Like, how
That's
foolish
true.
was that?
Oh man.
That's why I said who advising him.
Right?
Exactly. So we're gonna take a quick break and we'll be back with more of This Morning with Soulivity.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
And we're back with This Morning with Soulivity. My name is Brian Westley Johnson, and I'm joined again by my beautiful hosts, Candice Harper and Tami Gaines. Good morning again, ladies.
Good morning.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias, señorita. I wanted to guess after that topic, after that last topic, it's kind of like, okay, well, we can just close out after that. I was reading a story in the Detroit Free Press written by my dear friend, Rochelle Riley. The title of it is Traumatized Kids Are Not a Rarity in Michigan's Classrooms. And this kind of struck me, especially the first kind of paragraph, because it talked about, she wrote, 90% of teachers and principals across the Detroit Public School Community District reported that more than half of their students have been impacted by trauma that impedes their learning. And then there, in that same first part, it says, in interviews with school officials across the region, it is clear that districts in Michigan, like many across the country, are struggling to meet their primary goal of educating children because they are not equipped to deal with teaching children in pain. Ooh.
Yeah.
Do we even think about that sometimes? What's your reaction? I'll just open it up.
I'm gonna let Tami go first because she has parenting experience.
Yeah, Tami.
Which is traumatic. That's traumatic.
Right.
So, yeah. So topic hits near and dear because so at one point, both of my twins had special needs, and they were both in special classrooms, like they call it, different now. But my two older kids also had trauma, but they saw violence in the home, and we got divorced. Like at the end of the day, whatever I sort of feel like the special need is, most kids are experiencing some form of trauma.
Yeah.
How they manifest that, and if they put words to it, very different. Like the kids today are very different, thank goodness, because most of them ask for help, whether they're asking their friends or they're asking a teacher, or my daughter a couple months ago, she's like, I want to see a therapist. I was like, no problem. I didn't ask her why. I didn't ask her what for.
Yeah. I
just managed it. So I was one of the founders of a pre-K here in town, and it served 600 families. And one of the first, after we started interviewing families to see who we were going, because we had a limited number of spaces, I immediately said to the board, we need to hire a school counselor. These are little kids, by the way. These are like 3 and 4-year-olds, and maybe some 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
But it was talking to their parents that made me realize that, we need to have a school counselor. So luckily there's school counselors, I think, in most schools, y'all, but I don't know how much they're utilized, and I don't know how trained they are and how experienced they are.
Yeah.
It's sad. I think it's a very, and I come from a line of educators like you do, Brian.
Yeah.
I think there was always a little taste of this that we didn't really talk about.
Yeah.
Remember,
remember
back in the day, like when you could take like a kid out for lunch because they were having a bad day as a teacher.
Absolutely.
And now, I get a call like, your son did great on his math test. Can we take him for pizza?
Right. And back in the day, especially when my parents first were started in the school system, there were more resources. There was an attendance person in every school. There was a nurse in every school. There was a psychologist in every school. And then there was a role that my parents played, which was school community relations, which was this connection between the school and the community and business at large to have, the old adage, it takes a village.
Yeah.
And so that's all gone. That apparatus is gone. I don't see that at all in any schools anymore.
Yeah. Not to mention all the cuts to like physical fitness and music programs and all those sorts of things that are coping where you learn coping skills, because you're right, Tim. I mean, I work with adults who've been through trauma and it is very common. I don't know that there's anybody who gets out of childhood without some sort of triggering of their survival skills, their emotional survival skills. But now with less resources and less funding, like, how do we even learn how to cope?
Right. And according to this article that was, Rochelle don't play. When she sees something like this, she just comes out with it. One of the section titles just hit me hard, and it's like, how do you teach a sobbing child?
Yeah.
How do you
Because
teach?
it is, when you're in insecurity and instability as a child, the only thing you know to do is survive.
Right.
And,
Right.
we go into our animal brain. It is impossible. Like, even as an adult, think about any time you've been nervous as an adult. It's impossible to think clearly. It's impossible to learn, to take in new information when you're in fight or flight. When your amygdala has been triggered and you're trying to like just save yourself.
Right. Right.
And for
Right.
a child, things are so new.
Yeah, and there's so listen, for children, they're not only now dealing with whatever trauma they're experiencing at home, but they're also being inundated with, social media, like stuff on TikTok and these video games that are like, I actually looked over the shoulder of one of these kids playing a video game. It was the most violent thing I ever saw.
Oh yeah.
It was like
Oh,
they were
yeah.
at war. Like, how was
Oh,
that
yeah.
fun and entertaining?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're getting hit across, at all sides.
So,
And people are
you
like
can't
making a
even
lot of
focus
money.
in on whatever that
go ahead, Tim.
whatever that trauma is, whatever your core trauma is. Now you're like sort of wrapping it around with all this other stuff, right? You're right, social media and these video games, and maybe you're getting bullied in school, or maybe you don't have any friends. Like, whatever your core trauma is, I think it's hard to get to.
Absolutely.
It's even harder to get to now because we have all this stuff around it. But when we come back, I have another thought which might tip the internet.
That's it. Let's break the
Let's
internet,
break
y'all.
the internet,
y'all. All right, listen, everybody. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to keep on this topic, of course, on how trauma is becoming, which is a barrier to learning in our schools across the country. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Hey there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoyed the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And we are back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We're just having some fun and some seriousness talking about how trauma is inhibiting learning in our schools across the country. And Tami, you had a thought because we want to break the internet.
I did have a thought. Hey Brian, give me that section.
How do you teach a sobbing child?
You teach them something different.
Mm,
You
mm,
don't teach.
mm.
You stop teaching academics and you start teaching
Yeah.
life skills,
Mm.
coping skills. You start thinking about the whole child because, by the way, the math is going to be there.
Yeah.
The science is going to be there. What may not be there is somebody that actually sits and talks and teaches what is relevant in this moment. So like I remember when when George Floyd was murdered, nobody was teaching anything here. Nobody was teaching anything. Like
Exactly.
it was a solid 3 weeks where nothing got done, no homework was assigned, no tests were given,
Mhm.
and there wasn't like some mandate that came down from on yonder.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think teachers were like, this is there's a supposed to be happening right now, and they had it. So I say all that to say, we need to recalibrate where we put value in our education system.
Mm-hmm.
Like who cares if a kid is a C student if they're thriving emotionally,
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Right. Right.
Just and along those lines, it maybe it's starting to happen in some places, but I can tell you there's a movement here in New Jersey
Mm-hmm.
to start high school class so the teens can get more
Mm.
sleep. Like they're finding out, like I mean, I see it every day. My daughter goes to sleep at 2-ish in the morning and is
Mhm.
up at 7 to go to school,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
walking through the week as a mummy. So I say all that to say, I just think we need to recalibrate like what we're teaching and when we're teaching it.
You know, I have as a child of educators like you, Tami, there's a couple of thoughts. One, thank you for saying that. There's a quote in the article that from Jim Henry, who's a professor of social work at Western Michigan University and the director of the Children's Trauma Assessment Center, where he says, we know that there is chronic trauma or complex trauma where a child is constantly exposed to traumatic events in their home or neighborhood, overwhelming events that create powerlessness and an ongoing sense of danger.
Mm.
And so, since we know this to be true, then our education system should reflect that truth in terms of support for both the student and the parents and the staff, by the way. Because
Throw that
the
in there.
staff also, the staff, the teachers, principals, because one piece in here in this article, thank you again, Rochelle, for writing this, is that the teachers are now suffering, trauma.
Trauma.
Yeah.
Look at the messed up behind the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I would say just third and I would say, and I won't say most importantly, but just as important is, when are we gonna pay our people the money that they are deserved?
Right.
That was my next point.
When are we gonna pay them?
Yeah.
They God bless our teachers, because I saw my mother going to the craft store and buying stuff and getting, a couple of books that her students could share and read. and all that, because there wasn't enough in the buildings. And again, we could have a conversation about
I
Funding.
schools and
Yeah.
funding and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. That's a
I
whole, you know. Go
well,
ahead, Tami.
I think
I can see you
yeah,
rearing up
you know
like,
what? I know. I'm like, I'm rocking in my chair, rocking. Just be quiet. I'll get to you. No, it is a whole nother conversation. I think it's a conversation worth having, not on this show, but when I talk about recalibrating our educational system, I am also including the fact that teachers are among the lowest paid
yes,
professions in the
Mhm.
country. And people on Wall Street and big entertainment attorneys are pulling down tens of millions of dollars, CEOs of companies, tens of millions of dollars. If our value is in the right place, we'd be paying our teachers millions of dollars because they're teaching, and they're social workers, and they're nurses, and they're caretakers when the parents are
Mhm.
late, building the fabric of our society.
right,
Mhm.
right,
Why why haven't we flipped that model on its head? Like,
Yeah.
what are wealth managers contributing? By the way, my boyfriend is a wealth manager, so I'm not like he's contributing, but I mean in terms of like, the fabric of our society.
Yeah.
right, right.
When
No,
do we
it's
flip that paradigm? I don't know.
And what's interesting too about what you said, Tami, is that because I used to volunteer for an organization called Youth at Risk, and the whole point is that they were at risk, they were in traumatic situations, and so that program actually prioritized emotional health, emotional learning, and so
Mm,
it's kind of like triage, right? Like if
right.
your health, you went into the emergency room, what would the doctors take care of first? If you're
Hmm.
bleeding out,
Right,
that's what they're
right.
gonna get to first, and then, work their way towards the things that are, yes, important, but less urgent. And I think now it has spread in such a, wider, um, range in our society that it's not just, kids who don't make it to school. The kids that are in school also need the same emotional triage. Like, it's become a thing where like we were talking about when we were talking about police officers. So, people with their boots on the ground need emotional support. There's no
Right.
way
Hmm.
around it. And we don't all have the means. And so it's our systems that really need to kick in. Otherwise,
Hmm.
what is the future going to look like if we don't start taking care of this and find
Hmm.
that
Mm.
funding?
Ladies, I am told, we need to have a show on this. We need
Yeah, I
to,
do. I
we
think
just,
so because there's
we
so much,
just, yeah,
and we
yeah.
should get a bunch of teachers to jump into YouTube and Facebook,
Oh.
and then send the transcript to the president. Send them to every governor in the country, and then send it right on to the president. Here's what we care about.
Yeah.
We don't care about those balloons floating over the ocean, and this is what I care about.
Right, right.
Fix
Listen,
the system.
Because
everybody.
even if our
Yeah, go ahead,
education
Ken.
system is just specifically for an industrial complex, even if it's just to create a bunch of workers, it's not sustainable if everybody's unhealthy,
Right,
Mhm.
right.
right?
And on
Speak on it.
and on that note, we're gonna take a break and let that seep in, and we'll be right back with more of This Morning with Soulivity.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame, living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Are you ready to take that first step towards true, unwavering inner happiness? Are you like thousands of people who have everything they need, not want but need, and still can't seem to find happiness and fulfillment in their lives? If so, the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, you will learn about the principles and practices that lead to true inner happiness. Because guess what? It isn't found in our external environment, but within ourselves instead. Together with my guests, we will explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices. And together, we'll advise you on the actionable steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. So I invite you to join me each week on Soulivity TV on the Steps to Happiness show with me, Teresa Greco.
Woo, and we are back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. Ladies, man, this show always goes too fast.
It does.
You know, I love the topics today. I think we could really talk more about each of them, especially about teaching in America, funding for our education system, and the current kind of plight that exists and has existed with teachers for a long time.
Yeah.
And staff. I want to include the staff too, because there's support staff that go even more unnoticed than teachers do.
Yeah.
you know, but I mean, just any final thoughts for both of you? I'll go to you, Candy, first.
Yeah, it's funny too, because we talked about this, I think, on Tuesday. My mom was a teacher as well. And, I would always hear about what her main concerns were about the responsibility of her job. And, we always say that teachers should be paid more, teachers should be paid more. And I think, we have these conversations, and of course we want to be able to just sit and solve the world's problems in a conversation. But I am a strong believer in, just standing for what we stand for, right? It's like,
Right.
all we can really do, because we're having real conversations that empower, right? If you're someone who's listening and you're out there and, you're feeling the same way and that frustration comes up, all we can really do is be a stand for what we believe in. Right. Be a stand for what's possible. And, and as much as we talk about there should be emotional wellness care, there should be services provided for children who are going through trauma. It's like all we can do is in our individual lives, be committed to making sure as much as we can that can happen. Be a space for that, be a space, a conduit for, helping people in your life get help. Don't feel like you have to solve the overall problem, because no one individual can do that. It's just that willingness to do the small things that we can do. And hopefully that's what people will take away. Like, who can you help today? How can you be a space for someone else's wellness, or, making sure that they get to where they need to get to in order to be supported.
Thank you for that, Candy. Tami, what about you? What are your final thoughts for today?
Yeah, my final thoughts across listen, I'm a person of action. So I would ask people what they're infuriated about, figure out where the gaps are, especially when we talk about schools. There's a whole ecosystem around schools. It's not just the teachers and the students and the administration and the staff. Like, there's a whole ecosystem that feeds into schools.
Yeah.
So I would ask you to find your lane. Well, if you know that food insecurity is an issue in your particular community and you're passionate about that, then get involved specifically around that. Go to the school board meetings. Go talk to listen, they welcome the help. I would, go talk to the PTA, go talk to who, be in that lane. If you know that there's students in your community that, are not sure where they're sleeping that night, and stable housing is your thing for families, get involved.
Yeah.
So my point is, too many people complain from the sideline.
Absolutely.
Nothing fundamental will change. We can't rely on government. We can't rely on the people that we elect. The only thing you can control is yourself and your own actions. So I would just say, just make sure you're getting involved at some level, because that's how we're going to start to change the schools.
Thank you to both of you. I think my final thoughts are a combination of both, and I keep hearing these words from my ancestors saying, "Be the change that you want to see." And you know, I love that, Tami, you're talking about get active, be involved, be engaged, right? I grew up with this with a family and with a community where it took a village to raise our children. So if the village doesn't show up, the children continue to be traumatized and they don't learn and they don't feel supported or loved. And so you have to be active in the community, as well as with the Steven Tyler thing. I mean, there were adults that were in the rooms when all this was going on, right? Be the change that you want to see. If this is not something that you think is cool, you need to use your voice and speak up and say, you know, this isn't cool. You know, that's an underage girl, right? And that kind of thing. So be the change that you want to see. Great show. Another great show.
Yeah. I always go through the rest of the day like, I have more to say. I want to hear people's opinions. I want to hear what people have to say about this.
Exactly. Well, they can come back and listen next week. Listen, everybody, speaking of hearing your voice, listen, we want you to follow us on social media, get engaged in these conversations. Let us know what you're thinking, because your voice is very important to us, as well as we want you to join our mailing list where you can get access to exclusive content, including giveaways. But more importantly, we want to connect with you. We want to hear your voice. We want to know what matters. So as you being part of that mailing list, you can tell us, hey, how are we doing? What subjects do you want us to talk about? And so that we can hear from you. Listen, we just got a few seconds left. I just want to say on behalf of all of us here, thanks again for joining us for another edition of This Morning with Soulivity. We hope that you come back and join us every day at 8 a.m. Eastern for our live broadcast, or you can listen at 9 a.m. Pacific on KMET 1490 AM for our rebroadcast for all of you out on the West Coast. Until next time, this is Brian Wesley Johnson saying thanks, and we'll see you again.
Bye.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.